Black Desert Online is one of the most popular, most successful MMORPGs across the globe. This is in part due to the fact that there just isn't any other MMO capable of rivaling aspects that BDO excels in. Okay, but on a serious note here, BDO provides us as gamers some of the best action combat, some of the largest seamlessly accessible worlds, and best character creators available in the genre. All that in a game that is over 7 years old. Yeah. If you didn't think the genre was stagnant before, try retaining the #1 spot for all of the above for the better half of a decade with absolutely no competition whatsoever. But no game is immune to decay. Without regular updates, every MMO will suffer from the very same stagnation that the genre as a whole suffers from. Thankfully, Black Desert Online keeps players engaged with seasonal updates, some consisting of small new areas, others of large entire continents, and most commonly, and most importantly, for certain players, the addition of new classes. Every year sees at least 1 or 2 new class additions, bringing players back for a few weeks as they let nostalgia take hold of them and relive what they loved about the game before departing once more. That is the average Black Desert cycle. In light of this, Pearl Abyss teased back at the Heidel Ball in 2022 that they were planning a large new update, introducing an entire region to the game. Further details came via the Calpheon Ball, also held in 2022. Before we delve deeper into what Black Desert Online has to offer us this year and whether I think it's worth playing, allow me to thank our incredible patrons over on Patreon. You guys are absolutely incredible and I cannot thank you enough for your support. Also, if you have a moment, follow me over on Twitch. I stream MMOs like Black Desert Online and new MMOs there every weekend. As of the 29th of March 2023, just 2 weeks ago, what can only be described as essentially an expansion titled Land of the Morning Light was released in Korea, with Pearl Abyss confirming that the update would be releasing globally shortly after. And no, not shortly after, as in, 2025. Pearl Abyss are actually pretty good when it comes to Actually, thinking back to Dokkaevi, Crimson Desert, Plan 8. Yeah, speaking of Crimson Desert, Dokkaevi, Plan 8, they were in fact announced years ago and we have still received relatively no news in the last year, 2 years on either. Thus, shortly is evidently very subjective. The Land of the Morning Light expansion features the new continent of Hasso, located across the seas beyond the Musa, Maiwa, and Lan classes' homeland, Port Rad. According to the Black Desert Foundry, the region is going to be roughly the equivalent of Kamaslivia in terms of size and scale and has been an actively discussed region for years. The region itself looks gorgeous, and that should really come as no surprise given that is the main appeal of BDO. Black Desert might have its flaws, of which there are many, but it never fails to deliver in terms of beauty or gameplay, unless we're, talking about the Shadow Arena. But then we don't really talk about the Shadow Arena. The expansion brings with it a lot of inspiration from Korean history, specifically the Joseon Dynasty, the last dynastic kingdom of Korea, featuring unique areas, buildings, and vegetation specific to that era. There are new races present such as the Hwarang, the Hare, and the Tortoise folk. Naturally, there's an extension to the story, and unlike what players are typically used to, the story will provide us with a semblance of freedom, allowing us to choose different story-related paths with different outcomes. The Land of the Morning Light will also feature a slightly different approach to its world. There will be several large boss monsters spread throughout the world, each having their own unique set of complex mechanics and requiring a different method to defeat. So what they mean by this is big boss hit hard, big boss splat players. There are new gathering minigames, new hunting life skill, new cooking and alchemy tools, along with various other additions and alterations to life skilling, new mansions for players interested in player housing, because you're never going to be able to afford one IRL, new ships, new gear to obtain, and so much more. This expansion is going to be absolutely massive and will provide so many reasons to come back and experience what could arguably be described as one of the best Korean-inspired expansions for any MMO to date. But this is just for PC. Last week, the Maigu class and Spring Season servers were released onto console. In addition to these releases, saw the game also get a pretty sizable discount for players looking to purchase it on either PlayStation or Xbox. This discount will become unavailable come April 20th though. So, As this video is going live April 18th, what that means is you got like 2 days. I don't particularly feel like discussing Black Desert Mobile, as I feel like it's an entirely different game with different content, a different update schedule. Admittedly, I do believe it is one of the better mobile MMOs out there, but the bar for that isn't particularly high. Back in February, Pearl Abyss released its fourth quarter financials, comprising the months of October, November, and December 2022. Pearl Abyss has repeatedly expressed their interest in the overseas market outside of Korea, with them directly confirming 81% of its sales since 2012 have been from Western players. Although in the last few years, Pearl Abyss as a whole have been underperforming, something that isn't entirely uncommon amongst men our age. This isn't specific to a singular game or platform, with annual revenue for 2022 being at roughly $300 million. Honestly, an incredible number given it makes more than most gacha games do in the same frame of time. This is down significantly since 2019, which saw annual numbers topping $400 million. But we can attribute the large influx of earnings to the fact that Pearl Abyss released Black Desert onto consoles and Black Desert Mobile within the same year. Pearl Abyss confirmed that as of the end of the fourth quarter of 2022, Black Desert Online has an overwhelming 50 million total players spread across every platform. 20 million players play the game via PC, 35 million players play via mobile, which is actually rather surprising to me, and 4.1 million play via console. Since releasing, it has earned the company $1.6 billion, with 77% coming exclusively from the PC version. To put this into perspective, in a single year, Genshin Impact makes more money than Black Desert Online has earned in 7 years. EVE Online was also mentioned, but not really elaborated on. Dokkaevi, Plan8, and Crimson Desert are listed as upcoming MMOs or upcoming games, but Black Desert continues to be the driving force behind the studio. In terms of total active players, as their claim of 50 million is total players that have registered and played the game at one point since its launch, it seems as though estimates put BDO at anywhere from 300,000 to 700,000 players. Many of these are no doubt bots, like most MMOs are plagued with, but the game averages roughly 500,000 active players all year round. Despite its lows, and in spite of its highs, Black Desert Online continues to remain an MMO that players return to every year. I've been recording footage of their newest class over the last week and have been having a lot of fun back in the game. It's been about a year and a half since I last stepped foot in game, and every year I return, things have changed. At times for the better, and admittedly at times for the worse. Right now I'm playing through an entirely new area with a whole new story, new characters, a brand new class. This is an introductory experience that I haven't had the pleasure of witnessing, and I didn't know that they had even implemented. Furthering my point that Pearl Abyss are always ardently working on the introduction of new content, putting them vastly ahead of all of their competition, with the exception of Final Fantasy XIV and WoW, of course. But realistically, how do you even compete with those? Well, you could make yourself a mobile gacha MMO. I recently covered how Summoner's War Chronicles actually has more active players than both World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV put together. So there you go. Food for thought. Is Black Desert Online worth starting in 2023 though? Or if you have already played, is it worth returning to? I guess it really depends on what you personally want from the game. Black Desert Online is still very much the same game that it has been for the last few years. Sure, they made some alterations to the game. They introduced new features, new content, but the core of what the game is remains much the same. It's an MMO that requires a very large time investment. It's a game with a lot of grinding, but also a lot of freedom with regards to life skilling, leveling, exploring. There's more to do, more to see, more to find in this game than in most MMOs. But I nevertheless always find myself growing tired of the repetitious grind, like I do in every MMO. This is not something that is exclusive to Black Desert Online. So, I stopped playing after a period. Sometimes a week, sometimes it's a month. Yet even so, I continue to find myself always coming back due to everything it provides me that I just can't find anywhere else. I think BDO is worth playing, so long as you're not off-put by tedious grinds. And I think many other people feel much the same. Otherwise, it wouldn't have garnered the active player base that it has. But if BDO isn't your kind of game, don't worry, I got you covered with 2 different videos on screen right now. One featuring every MMO releasing this month, and the other featuring a game MRSSSTIX played that she had a lot of fun in.